All right, so it seems like you guys really want to master those social invitations, huh?
Yeah, it looks like everyone's trying to become the ultimate party planner.
Well, you came to the right place because we're going to deep dive into everything you need to know.
From casual hangouts to those super formal RSVP required gatherings.
It's going to be
You
fun.
know, it's interesting how invitations are so much more than just logistics.
What do you mean?
It's like this unspoken social dance with a bunch of unwritten rules and cultural
Oh,
differences.
yeah, for sure. I can see that.
And those things can really make or break the whole experience.
Definitely. Okay, so to help us break it all down, we've got some great examples from the English learning channel, English with Marco and Erica.
Oh yeah, they're great.
They've got it all laid out for us from essential phrases for different occasions
Like when to use, "We request the pleasure of your company."
versus just a simple, want to grab a beer.
Exactly. And they have these really helpful real-world dialogues for like every situation you can think of.
I know, I was looking through their stuff and it's amazing.
Like their birthday party, wedding, and even last-minute coffee meetup examples are so relatable.
Yeah, I especially liked how they pointed out that in some cultures, RSVPs are treated really casually.
Oh yeah, like in parts of India, right?
Yeah, people might say yes just to be polite, but then not actually show up.
Which could be a total nightmare if you're planning a party.
Oh, for sure, you'd end up with way too much food or not enough space.
Exactly. So it's not just about being polite, it's about understanding the cultural context too.
I never thought about it like that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and Marco and Erica also talk about choosing the right phrases depending on how formal you need to be.
Right, because you wouldn't invite your boss to a work event the same way you'd invite your friend to a barbecue.
Exactly. You got to set the right tone from the beginning.
For sure. So, how do they recommend inviting a boss to something like a work event?
Well, they have this example where they keep it professional but still friendly.
I like that.
Something like, "I hope this email finds you. Yeah, I'd love for you to join us for." You know.
Yeah, so it's formal but not stiff.
Exactly.
I think finding that balance is key. You want to be respectful but not overly formal.
Oh, definitely. And speaking of respect, we have to talk about how cultural differences can really change things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Marco and Erica mentioned how the timing of sending invitations can be totally different depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah. In some cultures, it's weeks in advance. In others, it's fine to invite someone like the day before.
Can you imagine the awkwardness if you get that wrong?
Oh my gosh, I've totally been there. I once invited a friend from another country to a dinner party just a few days before.
Oh, no.
And she was so surprised. Apparently, in her culture, it's considered rude not to give people at least a week's notice.
Wow, that's good to know.
Yeah, I learned my lesson for sure.
So you really have to be careful.
Yeah, and it's not just the timing, it's also the method of invitation.
Right, like a traditional paper invite might be expected for a formal event in some cultures, but in others, a digital invite or even a text message is totally fine.
So, how do you know what's appropriate? It seems like
Okay.
it could be easy to mess up.
Well, doing a bit of research never hurts.
Yeah, that's true.
But honestly, sometimes the best thing to do is just ask
Ask who?
someone who's familiar with the culture, get their advice.
That's smart. They might even have some tips on how to personalize the invitation.
Exactly. It's all about being respectful and making sure your guests feel comfortable.
And a well-crafted invitation really sets the tone for the whole event.
Absolutely. So it's worth putting in the effort.
Okay, but what about those common invitation blunders that Marco and Erica talk about?
Oh yeah, those are important to avoid.
What's the biggest one?
Not specifying the time clearly.
Oh my gosh, yes. It seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people forget that crucial detail.
Right, it's like party at my place Saturday.
You're like, wait, what time? Afternoon, evening, midnight.
Exactly. You're just setting yourself up for confusion and maybe even no-shows?
And what about that awkward situation where you're invited to something but you don't know if you can bring a +1?
Ugh, that's the worst.
It's so uncomfortable having to ask, especially if it's like a small dinner party.
I know Marco and Erica suggest just being upfront about whether guests are welcome.
Yeah, just put it on the invitation. Like, feel free to bring a guest, or this is a couples-only event.
Exactly. It saves everyone the headache of guessing and maybe overstepping boundaries.
That's such a good idea. It's all about clear communication and anticipating those awkward moments.
Exactly. You want your guests to feel comfortable and excited about the event.
All right, so I think we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, we have.
From the purpose of invitations to those cultural nuances and avoiding those invitation blunders.
We've got a good foundation.
So you ready to keep going?
Absolutely. Let's dive into part 2.
All right, so we've talked about being clear and culturally sensitive and setting the right tone, but how do you actually write invitations that people are going to be excited about?
Ah, that's the real question.
Yeah.
Luckily, English with Marco and Erica They give us some awesome examples to work with.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that birthday party invitation we were talking about?
Yeah.
They take this casual approach that feels really natural.
Oh.
Like, instead of just saying, come to my party, Marco starts by asking, hey, what are you up to this Saturday?
Oh, I see. So it's more like easing into the invitation.
Exactly. It's like a conversation starter.
Yeah, not just demanding their presence.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And then when they show a formal wedding invitation,
Oh, yeah.
the language is way more elevated.
Yeah.
It's all like, we would be honored if you could join us.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's fancy.
Yeah. It sets a totally different tone.
Right. It sounds important, but not too stuffy.
Yeah. So the question is, how do you balance that formal stuff with a personal touch?
Yeah, especially now that we have so many different ways to send invitations.
That's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Marco and Erica actually compare all the pros and cons of different invitation methods.
Like what?
Everything.
Oh.
From paper invites to emails to those digital invitation apps.
Oh, yeah, those are cool.
They even talk about the good old-fashioned phone call.
Oh, the phone call. I remember when that was like the only way to invite people.
Yeah. Sometimes it felt like a game of phone tag, just trying to get everyone to RSVP.
Oh my gosh, I hated that.
Right. But that's why they highlight how great technology is now. Email, for example, lets you reach a ton of people really quickly and easily.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can keep track of RSVPs without any hassle.
Oh, yeah, that's way easier than phone calls.
But it can feel a bit impersonal, you know?
Yeah, especially for smaller gatherings.
Exactly. That's why I still love getting a handwritten invitation.
Me too. It feels like they really put effort into it.
Yeah, like you're special.
And don't forget about those fancy digital invitations.
Oh, yeah. Some of those apps let you create some amazing visuals.
It's like a modern take on the classic paper invite.
Exactly. And you can even add videos and music.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
So it's all about picking the method that fits the event and your own style.
But no matter what method you choose, there are some key elements that every invitation needs.
Marco and Erica are very clear about this.
Okay, so what are those must-have details?
Well, first of all, you got to be super clear about the date and time.
Yeah, no one wants to show up on the wrong day.
Exactly. And of course, you need to include the location.
Obviously. Because party at my place isn't very helpful if people don't know where you live.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also need to explain what kind of event it is.
Oh, yeah, like is it a casual get-together or a fancy dinner party?
Exactly. You want your guests to know what to expect so they can dress appropriately.
Speaking of dress code, that's another thing people often forget.
Oh, yeah. But it's so important for setting the tone.
Imagine showing up to a black tie event in jeans and a t-shirt.
Oh my gosh, that would be so awkward.
And what about the whole +1 situation?
Ah, yes. That could be tricky.
How do you handle that without making things weird?
You just got to be upfront and specific.
Okay.
If you're open to guests, just say something like, feel free to bring a guest, or +1s are welcome.
Right.
But if it's a smaller gathering or you have limited space,
Yeah.
it's totally fine to say it's a solo event.
I like that. It avoids any confusion.
Yeah, no hurt feelings.
So it's all about managing expectations and making sure everyone feels comfortable.
Now let's talk about what happens after you send out those amazing invitations.
The waiting game.
Yeah, you're just waiting to see who RSVPs and who actually shows up.
It can be nerve-wracking.
It can. But there's a smart way to manage those RSVPs.
Oh, tell me.
It's all about setting a clear RSVP deadline
Okay.
and then following up with the people who haven't responded.
Oh, yeah, like a gentle reminder.
Exactly. Marco and Erica suggest sending a reminder a few days before the deadline.
That makes sense. It's not too pushy.
Right? But what about those people who just never respond?
Oh, yeah, it's like they disappear.
I know.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, people are busy and sometimes things slip their mind.
Yeah, that's true.
So Marco and Erica recommend sending one final casual message a day or two before the event.
Oh, okay. Like, hey, just wanted to see if you're still coming to event name. Looking forward to seeing you.
Exactly.
Oh.
It's friendly, and it gives them one last chance to confirm.
It's like saying, we really want you there, but no worries if you can't make it.
Right. It's the perfect balance.
And following up on RSVPs isn't just about getting an accurate head count.
What else is it about?
It's about showing your guests that you care about them being there.
It's that extra touch of thoughtfulness.
Now, we've been talking a lot about the sender's perspective.
Right.
But what about declining an invitation?
Oh, yeah. That's important, too.
Because let's be real, sometimes you just can't say yes to everything.
You're absolutely right. Declining invitation gracefully is a skill in itself.
Yeah, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Exactly. But before we get into the do's and don'ts of saying no,
Sure.
let's move on to part 3.
Sounds good.
We'll explore how to decline invitations without burning any bridges.
That's a valuable skill.
So stay tuned for part 3, where we'll continue our deep dive into the world of social invitations.
All right, so we're back and ready to tackle that last piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, how to decline an invitation gracefully.
Because sometimes you just can't make it to everything.
Absolutely. Life happens, you know?
It does. You get busy things come up, or sometimes you just need a night in.
Exactly. It's totally okay to say no, but it's all about how you do it.
Right. You don't want to be rude or hurt anyone's feelings.
Marco and Erica, they touch on this a little bit,
Yeah, I remember that.
but I think it deserves a deeper dive.
I agree.
They basically say that honesty and politeness are key.
That makes sense.
So let's say you get invited to a party, but you're already busy that night.
Okay.
How would you handle that?
Well, first, I would definitely thank them for the invitation.
Yeah, that's important.
Something like, thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Perfect. That shows that you value the invitation and the friendship.
Right.
Then you can just say that you can't make it because you already have plans. No need to give a long explanation or make up excuses.
Just keep it simple.
Exactly.
But here's what I always struggle with. How do you say no without sounding like you don't care?
That's where you got to be a little bit clever. After you say you can't make it, try adding something positive.
Oh, like what?
Something like, I hope you guys have an amazing time. Tell me all about it later.
I like that. It shifts the focus back to the event.
Exactly. You're showing your support even though you can't be there.
So you're not just rejecting them.
Right. And if it's for something like a movie or a concert,
Yeah.
you can even suggest a different time to get together.
Oh, that's smart.
Like, I'm not free this time, but I'd love to catch another show with you sometime. How's next week looking?
Oh, I love that. You're keeping the connection going.
Exactly.
Okay, but what if you're declining because you're just not interested in the event itself?
That's a tough one.
Like maybe it's a type of food you don't like or an activity that's not really your thing?
Yeah. You don't want to be rude, but you also don't want to force yourself to go.
Right.
Honestly, is still the best policy.
Okay.
But you got to be careful how you say it.
So how would you phrase it?
You could say something like, thank you so much for thinking of me.
Oh.
Unfortunately, activity isn't really my thing, but I appreciate the invitation.
No, that's good. You're not criticizing them. You're just stating your preference.
Exactly.
And you don't have to over-explain yourself.
Nope. Sometimes a simple, I can't make it this time, but thanks for the invite, is enough.
Keep it short and sweet.
As long as you're sincere and respectful.
So it seems like we've covered a lot in this deep dive into social invitations.
We have.
We talked about finding the right words, understanding those cultural differences, picking the right invitation methods,
Following up on RSVPs.
and even saying no gracefully.
It's all connected.
So what's the most important thing for our listeners to remember?
I think the key takeaway is to be thoughtful and intentional when it comes to invitations.
Whether you're sending them or receiving them.
Exactly. Think about the people involved, the occasion, and the message you want to send.
A little bit of effort can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
So go out there and invite with confidence.
And remember, whether you're hosting or attending, the most important thing is to connect with people.
It's all about those human connections.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.
Until then, happy inviting.